Hey, hi, hello. Welcome back to the Weekly Trump Update, where we go through this week's top stories regarding the Trump administration and the US government. I'm your host, Gerardo Sosa, and in this update we have news on Joe Biden's prostate cancer diagnosis, there being a new pope, IRS layoffs, and Supreme Court reactions to birthright citizenship. After 2 days of voting, the conclave came to a quick decision on the new pope. Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost became Pope Leo XIV, making him the 267th pope in history. He's the first American pope and was born in Chicago to Spanish and Franco-Italian parents and was raised Catholic and served as an altar boy. Pope Leo was ordained as priest in 1982. In 1985, he moved to Peru as a missionary where he served 10 years as a parish priest and seminary teacher in Trujillo, later becoming Bishop of Chiclayo from 2015 to 2023, appointed by Pope Francis in 2014. Because of this move, he gained Peruvian citizenship and has even referred to Peru as his second homeland. In 2023, he was elevated to Archbishop and later Cardinal, where he served in the Prefect of Dicastery for Bishops, which is key in appointing global bishops. During his first address as Pope, he paid tribute to Pope Francis, saying that we still hear in our ears the weak but courageous voice of Pope Francis. Pope Leo supports some of Francis's reforms, like allowing women to serve in bishop selection, promoting blessings for same-sex couples, and advocating climate action and Vatican sustainability. There might be some friction with the Trump administration, as Pope Leo has been seen critical of the Trump administration's immigration policies, allegedly reposting articles condemning J.D. Vance. Now, onto birthright citizenship. As we've heard recently, Trump says that children born to undocumented or temporary visa holders should not be citizens of the US. As soon as people noticed that Trump was aiming to make this possible, the Trump administration faced many legal challenges, some of which included immigrant rights groups and 22 states suing immediately, 3 federal judges striking down the order and banning it nationwide, and Trump asking the Supreme Court to block those universal injunctions, arguing that the 14th Amendment was misunderstood, which saw the Supreme Court divided over the issue. One of the main issues floating around was how to apply the law if it was passed. Justice Kavanaugh asking what hospitals do when a baby's born. Solicitor General Dean John Sawyer saying that the feds could require proof of legal citizenship. But who would check, when would they check, and how would they check remains in the air. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson said that the policy would force people to hire lawyers just to stop the government from violating rights. Sawyer's solution was class action lawsuits. Justice Alito worried that 680 federal judges handing out nationwide rulings would equal chaos and doesn't buy class actions as a fix. Chief Justice Roberts suggested that courts need more time before the cases hit the Supreme Court. So what's next? A final ruling is expected by early summer, deciding the meaning of US citizenship. Now on to IRS layoffs. The Trump administration is cutting the IRS workforce by as much as 50,000 employees. Here's a little background on the IRS. The IRS collects 96% of federal revenue. Every American household and business interacts with the IRS in some way, meaning that the IRS's efficiency is important. This cut would reduce the IRS staffing levels to numbers that haven't been seen since the mid-20th century. Some of the cuts that have already been put in place include 7,400 probationary staff layoffs, 5,000 deferred resignations, and over 20,000 voluntary resignations, totaling over 30,000 staff, with more expected. According to the Center of American Progress, having the IRS workforce could cost $909 billion in lost revenue over 10 years, increase tax noncompliance, and result in a $2.4 trillion rise in net foregone revenue under alternative modeling. The Global High Wealth Department, which targets the rich, has been reduced by 40%. And offices responsible for IRS modernization have been shut down. In the long term, trust in the system could go down if the rich are able to dodge taxes while the average American complies with them. In other news, former President Joe Biden has been diagnosed with an aggressive form of prostate cancer, which has already spread to his bones, with a Gleason score of 9. For reference, the Gleason score ranges from 6 to 10 and reflects how abnormal the cancer cells look under a microscope. Many people are wondering why the diagnosis was made so late. But Biden has a history of enlarged prostate and urinary symptoms which overlap with the symptoms for prostate cancer. His last reported physical was in February of 2024, which didn't include a PSA test, which is a standardized test that's used to screen for prostate cancer, because guidelines usually stop routine PSA tests for people that are over 70 years old. Advanced prostate cancer isn't curable, but can be managed. Now onto some immigration news. Ksenia Petrova, a 31-year-old Russian-born scientist and Harvard research associate, has been criminally charged with trying to smuggle frog embryos into the US. Petrova had been in an immigration detention center in Louisiana for months before being transferred to a local jail after the charges were filed. Her attorney called the case meritless, claiming that the timing of the criminal charge was trying to justify the efforts to deport her. Petrova was detained at Boston's Logan International Airport on February 16th, where she was returning from Paris. where Customs and Border Protection flagged her duffel bag and discovered the embryos. The embryos had been requested by her supervisor at Harvard for ongoing experiments, but Petrova had initially denied carrying them. Biological materials like embryos require permits and must be declared before entering the US. The government had already planned to deport her to Russia prior to the charge, despite her fear of returning to Russia because of the things she said about Russia's involvement in the war. And now an update on the US-China trade war. After a couple months of going back and forth, the US and China have agreed on a truce. Last Monday, both sides announced significant tariff reductions. Global markets responded immediately, with stocks soaring, oil prices jumping, and traders feeling a little more relaxed. But this isn't peace, it's just a pause. The new deal is only for 90 days, which allows for diplomats to figure out what years of tension and tariffs haven't resolved. The US will now impose a 30% tariff on China, down from the 145% that Trump demanded last month. China is reducing its tariffs from 125% to 10%, which is progress. Right now, people are mainly worried about what's going to happen after the 90 days. Now, onto the Russia and Ukraine war. In Istanbul, an important moment occurred last week. Russia's President Vladimir Putin chose not to attend peace talks with the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. He instead sent a lower-tier delegation to represent him in what would have been their first face-to-face discussion since 2022. The talk was supposed to be a potential breakthrough, giving them a chance to talk about the ceasefire and end the war, which has already claimed hundreds of thousands of lives. But Putin not showing up made a huge impact on the hope that people had. Trump stated that no progress can be made without a personal meeting between himself and Putin. Zelensky stated that he felt disrespected from Russia. No meeting time, no agenda, no high-level delegation. It was just personal disrespect. Putin insists that any ceasefire must be negotiated first because he fears that the Ukraine would use it as a way to increase its military position with Western support. As of right now, the war continues, and the future of peace talks remain unclear. Thank you for listening to this week's Trump Date. I hope to see you in the next one.